All right. So, welcome everybody. Thanks for pressing with us. Just to give you guys a level set, this is the order I selected. G12 will go first, G11 second, G9 third, and G2 last but not least. Okay. Um, you have 10 minutes. I will time you guys at 10 minutes. I will call time if you're not done. So I'll read a script, and if you guys want me to read the script for each one, just let me know, just for a refresher. So one, no, it's not one presenter. So could just the team, G12 team, the folks who are going to be presenting, can you guys come on camera? Everybody else, go on mute or go off. I mean, just turn off the camera. Okay. So I should just have Magic Solutions up.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So I will read the script here, and then I'll hit the timer, and I'll let you guys go. Let me find the right one. You've been called back by the company you gave your full presentation to for a second visit. They've asked you to speak only about the ethical aspects of the problem and explain why your solution successfully handles any ethical issues. You have 10 minutes. There'll be no Q&A. You may not use slides or video. You probably don't want to have more than 2 or 3 members of your team do this. Senior judges will provide feedback after your presentation. So, are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Give a sec. All right.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jada Gotzi.
And I'm Kashish Garg.
And we're a part of Majik Solutions. Today, we will focus on the ethical issues surrounding transportation accessibility in Seattle. Transportation is more than a convenience, it's a lifeline. And yet, many communities in Seattle still struggle with basic accessibility. For residents in underserved neighborhoods, unreliable first and last mile connections can mean missing job opportunities, longer commutes, and even risking personal safety. Traditional systems weren't built on these challenges in mind. And to this fragmentation of transit information, there's no centralized app to help commuters navigate all options efficiently, and concerns around how personal data is collected and used. These gaps make the system feel inaccessible, untrustworthy, and inequitable. But there's a shared commitment to change. Agencies like Sound Transit and King County Metro are actively working towards more inclusive, efficient, and accessible transportation that meets the needs of our entire region. To make progress, we have to address the ethical challenges that continue to shape and sometimes limit our transit system. First, the first and mile problem. In places like South Park and Rainier Beach, residents often lack sidewalks or safe bike routes. Light rail stations are too far, and many can't afford the luxury of a rideshare. Without access to affordable, inclusive options, mobility becomes a privilege and not a right. Infrastructure investments also don't land evenly. Historically, white and affluent neighborhoods receive more funding for safety and upgrades, while people of color communities continue to face despair and neglect. That's not just bad policy, it's an ethical failure. Second, geographic inequity and cultural barriers. Transit planning often reflects on who is in the room and who is not. Language access, cultural differences, and lack of outreach have made it harder for immigrant and low-income communities, especially in places like SeaTac and Toccoa, to participate in these transit programs. Even while intentions investments can cause harm, light rail expansions, for instance, have driven gentrification in some neighborhoods, pricing out the very residents they aim to serve. Finally, a lack of meaningful engagement. Public meetings are often scheduled in inaccessible locations or times, making it hard for working class families to attend. Communities like Beacon Hill and South Park have repeatedly voiced that they feel ignored in planning discussions. When people are excluded, solutions mainly reflect data and not the lived experiences. If we want to build trust, we must start by listening. That means going to door, hosting multilingual and accessible forums, and creating advisory boards that actually reflect the community. So, how do we move forward? Ethically, equitably, and effectively? We're proposing a two-part solution. First, a centralized transit app. We want to introduce One Transit C. It will provide real-time updates, route optimization, and strong privacy controls. It will bring all transit options together into one platform so users, especially those without car access, can easily plan their trips. But we won't stop at convenience. The app is built on privacy-first architecture, ensuring that data collection is transparent and ethical from the very start. And second, public engagement, marketing, and incentivization. We'll work with community partners to co-design campaigns that raise awareness and also build trust. Incentives like discounted fares and loyalty points will encourage ridership, while collaborations with employers will promote alternative transportation methods. And most importantly, we're embedding this work in relationships and not just technology.
Thanks, Jader. With that, let's talk about the ethical implications of our solution. Ethics asks the deeper questions. Who benefits? Who's at risk? And how do we build systems that truly serve everyone? To guide our approach, we evaluated our solution through 6 ethical lenses. First, the rights-based lens. People aren't just data points. They deserve agency. We must respect individual autonomy and acknowledge the dynamics between transit data collectors and their users. It's not enough to protect people. We must empower them. With the One Transit C app, this means building privacy-first architecture, and with the public engagement efforts, designing outreach and participation models that give community real influence over how their behavior is interpreted, how services are shaped around them, and how they retain agency in systems that directly affect their daily lives. Second lens, justice. Is our system fair? Are burdens falling disproportionately on our vulnerable populations? Our centralized app uses anonymized, aggregated data to avoid surveillance and digital discrimination, ensuring that no community is unfairly targeted. At the same time, our public engagement and incentive strategies must ensure historically underserved communities are not just included but prioritized. This means designing campaigns in partnership with local organizations to ensure access, representation, and fairness from the outset. Third, the utilitarian lens. Our app helps enhance the efficiency of the entire system, creating environmental and social value by maximizing benefits like reduced travel time, lower carbon footprints, and increased overall system efficiency. However, these gains should not compromise individual privacy, so we need to implement strict access controls, data minimization, and third-party audits. Next, common good. This lens focuses on maximizing benefit and minimizing harm for all, particularly underserved communities. In addition to our app, we'll work closely with communities through public engagement and incentivization to ensure equitable access and long-term trust in the system. Next, the virtue ethics. This reminds us to align our action with our values. Are we building trust? To reflect these values, we're committed to co-creating policies with local neighborhoods and advocacy groups before trial rollouts. This ensures that both the app and engagement efforts reflect the community's needs and values, rather than simply prioritizing the city's convenience or technological ease. Finally, care ethics. It's not about abstract principles, it's about relationships. By co-creating policies with neighborhoods and advocacy groups, we'll make sure policy isn't defined solely by unknown officials, but by the communities themselves. Our public engagement campaigns strive to foster an environment where people feel respected, valued, and in control. After applying these lenses, we've distilled our values into 4 guiding principles. First, clarity and accountability. This means open communication about all transit system functions, from app algorithms to incentive structures, real-time updates, clear explanation of data usage, and accessible public reporting. Second, informed participation. Ethical engagement means more than just opt-in streams. We'll ensure users and communities understand how their data is used and how their voices shape the system. Third, respect for user data. We prioritize commuter dignity by minimizing data collection, employing de-identification techniques, and conducting regular external audits. Lastly, oversight. We build in feedback loops and governance structures to make sure our systems remain fair. This includes bias detection in any AI features for our One Transit C app and broader engagement and community-led decision-making structures to ensure our system respects and uplifts all demographic groups. In short, ethics transit is not just about moving people from point A to point B. It's about moving people with dignity, with fairness, and with trust. As Seattle continues to grow, we have a chance and a responsibility to make sure our transit systems reflect the values of the city we aspire to be in. By embedding ethics into our design from day one, we'll ensure that innovation lifts everyone, not just the loudest or the most privileged. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Good presentation. G11, Kombu Consulting Group.
Awesome. Thank you, Nate. And thank you for inviting me, Natalie, and Eric from Kombu Consulting back. Yesterday, we shared our plan for a more unified and transparent sustainability framework for the running shoe industry. We proposed large-scale modifications to the existing HIG index, which is the current industry standard. And our solution had 3 main points. First, we want to implement more comprehensive assessments, things like cradle-to-grave accounting and more thorough material sourcing traceability. Second, we want to standardize marketing and labeling so consumers can more easily understand the impacts of what they're buying. And third, we want to advocate our change as the new industry standard, aligning with emerging legislation and eventually becoming a new higher standard for the industry. So with that context of our solution, I'll now turn it over to Natalie to talk more about ethics.
Thanks, David. So our solution, the Kombu HIG Index, it is tackling the ethically challenging current HIG index proposed by Cascal. So there's a couple of reasons why that's ethically challenging at the moment. Currently, there's misinformation in the sourcing of the material emission scores. There's currently a bias towards fossil-based fuels having a better rating in that system rather than natural materials. And there's also a lack of transparency when it comes to the sourcing of that information. Together, those factors have incentivized synthetic fiber usage by Cascal's leading members of their organization, including Nike, Allbirds, and Brooks. And this has actually enabled greenwashing in this when this information was incorporated into the marketing of their sustainably made products. In 2022, H&M actually faced a class action lawsuit for doing just this. And if we were to look at, is this greenwashing ethically defensible? Yes and no. Putting yourself in their shoes as a Cascal brand member, where Cascal has 300 plus brands and 40,000 members worldwide, it would have been really easy for H&M to assume that this data from the HIG index was actually accurate. And it's also very challenging for a brand these days to understand boundaries when communicating about sustainability and impact to the public. It doesn't absolve them of their ethical responsibility to communicate responsibly and to fact check their information. But with this false data from the HIG index enabling greenwashing and the lack of any clear standards or regulations in the US, it's a complex dynamic for brands to navigate. And as a result of this lawsuit that I mentioned, Cascal, being attached to this, had to suspend use of all consumer-facing sustainability profiles to be used by their brands. So now this means for consumers, there's even less transparency and accessibility to this important information that could have had the potential to be ethically sound if the information was factually correct. Now I'll hand it off to Eric.
With that, I'll talk about how our solution is driven by three interconnected ethical values: transparency, integrity, and stewardship. It all begins with our conviction that sustainability is an ethical imperative. It is to protect the rights of the future generation to ensure environmental burdens and benefits of our actions are shared equally. And while the running shoe industry may seem small in the larger global economy, every effort to decarbonize matters. If we want to take climate action, no sectors can be left behind. Keeping global warming within the 1.5 C, or else risking triggering irreversible climate tipping points, that means as a whole globe, we need to rethink how we produce, how we consume, how we dispose of things, which includes the shoes on our feet. And from a climate justice perspective, the harm caused by the footwear supply chain is not theoretical. It is tangible and unequal. Countries like Vietnam, India, and Brazil have communities that face toxic pollutions from material extraction and chemical-intensive manufacturing, while countries like Ghana, Kenya, and Philippines, there are mountains of discarded footwear and apparel that ends up in landfills or burned, which releases toxin into the air, water, and soil. These are real people affected by the choices made in boardrooms and brand campaigns 1,000 miles away. And that is why our Kombu-Higgs Index is built on the three core values that deliver tangible good. Firstly, it is transparency. We believe that data should be open source, given public access to how the calculations are made, and our framework will cover the full life cycle issue, starting from raw materials to how it is disposed. It is far more complete from the current index. Secondly, it is about integrity. Sustainability needs to mean exactly what they say. Consumers can't be guessing, and these claims need to be clear, standardized definitions across the industry. We propose labels that are plain language, not just vague marketing terms, and that this will help build lasting trust, not just hype. Lastly, our final value is stewardship. True sustainability means taking responsibility for the product's entire environmental footprint, from including its end of life. The solution to reduce the communities affected by waste, extraction, and chemical pollution is ultimately a commitment to the future generation to stay within the safe climate limits. Now I'll pass to David to conclude.
Nate, I want you to imagine a dirty running shoe buried in a landfill. And now I want you to envision a young child in your life, any young child that you personally know, Nate. In the time it takes that shoe to fully decompose, that young child may have grown up and become a grandparent. Those types of long-term implications should be more clearly disclosed and understood by consumers like yourself. Cascale's mission is, quote, driving sustainable impact at scale. We respectfully feel Cascale is not fulfilling that mission. The running shoe industry will reach $20 billion by the end of the decade. 50 million Americans jog each year. An estimated 600 million people run around the world each year. Yet there is no single unified tool to clearly communicate the environmental and social implications of buying a running shoe and holding it across its entire life cycle. We argue Cascale owes it to consumers today and those future grandparents of tomorrow to provide a clearer, more understandable set of insights. Thank you.
Morale Mavericks. More Mavericks.
I, along with my team, Moral Mavericks, we presented a case to tackle greenwashing and ethically sourcing carbon credits. After our previous presentation, we have incorporated some of the feedback, and we would like to build that case again, and also definitely focus on the ethical part of it. We discussed about the present problems, the concerns, ethical concerns. We proposed some solutions, highlighted the benefits of implementing the solutions. Now we have also come up with an estimate of investment that would go into the solution, and we would like to present a few challenges that it would bring about. Now the company that we have taken is Shell, and the current problem that we are focusing on is that there are questionable carbon credit integrity. Now Shell relies on low cost carbon credits which lack rigorous verification, risking ineffective emission reductions, and this undermines net zero pledges and invites accusation of greenwashing. There's a lack of transparency in carbon markets. Current systems allow double counting, resale, or fraudulent claims due to opaque tracking that erodes stakeholder trust and delays climate progress. When we also look at the inconsistent project sustainability, many offset projects fail to deliver long-term CO2 sequestration due to poor monitoring. In Shell's instance, annual carbon credit investment could lack real climate impact. Now, to discuss further, I would like to invite Shruti to take this forward.
Yeah, so let's be honest. The voluntary carbon market is broken. Up to 60% of the credits out there don't actually reduce emissions. That's not just a technical issue, it's an ethical one. And Shell has the chance to lead differently with honesty, accountability, and real impact. So, we are proposing a blockchain plus AI powered carbon exchange that brings transparency and trust back into the system. So, blockchain ensures each credit is unique, traceable, and can't be tampered with. AI steps in to verify whether carbon projects are truly making a difference using around 85% accurate satellite imagery, IoT sensors, and real time analysis. No more guesses, just proof. Yes, the cost of these high integrity credits will go up from around $83 million to 200 million a year, but that's nothing compared to the cost of getting it wrong. Just a 2% hit to Shell's $42 billion brand could mean a $850 million loss. And with companies like Delta recently facing a $1 billion lawsuits over false carbon claims, we cannot afford to look the other way. So this is not just about avoiding risk, it's about the doing the right thing ethically. So to explain the ethical concerns, Purvang will take over.
Hi, myself Purvang here. Whatever the Shruti has proposed the solutions, we have seen that there are ethical gaps prevailing in the present carbon market. So we have identified 6 ethical gaps that is prevailing at present. First one is outcome over ethics, a theological trap. Many companies focuses solely on achieving sustainability targets, ignoring the ethics of how those targets are met. While emission goals may be technically fulfilled, the broader impact accelerates environmental degradation, bringing us closer to the tripping point, symbolized by the doomsday clock. Second is a case of deontological ethics. Companies like Microsoft follows a deontological approach, prioritizing values, duties, and integrity in decision making. This model ensures that ethical considerations are embedded in every business actions, not judged by the end results. Third is the Gandhi's trustship model. Mahatma Gandhi's concept of trustship urges business to act as a caretaker of society and the environment. Adopting this model means aligning profit with the purpose, creating value while protecting community and planetary well-being. Fourth is the inequity that is prevailing in climate impact distribution. Low income and marginalized communities often bear the brunt of environmental degradation while corporations continue to profit. Ethical sustainability demands that companies consider the social justice implications of their operation and policies. Fifth one is the exploitation in offset project sites. Many carbon offset projects are based in the global south, where communities may not be benefit equitably. There is a growing concern that such projects exploit the local resources without fair compensation, representation, or consent. Sixth is the moral justification through comparison. When unethical behavior becomes normalized, other companies follow the suit. The presence of greenwashing enables less ethical firms to rationalize their own inactions, dragging down the industry's overall moral standards. So apart from these 6 ethical gaps, we have also identified the sustainability concerns that is prevailing in the present carbon market. Going over the same, the first one is the short-term profits versus long-term planetary health. Corporate decisions are often driven by quarterly results rather than long-term ecological impacts. This short-termism leads to underinvestment in sustainability practices, sacrificing the future generations for immediate financial gain. Second is the lack of accountability in carbon reporting. Many corporations rely on self-reported data for carbon emissions and offsets, which can be incomplete or manipulated. Without independent verifications, there is a significant risk of misrepresentation, undermining the credibility of sustainability claims. Third is the lack of ethical leadership and culture. Ethics often take a backseat in corporate culture, especially when not championed by the leaderships. Without strong leadership and ethical framework, sustainability becomes a checkbox activity rather than a core principle. Fourth one is the greenwashing misleads the stakeholders. Some companies, like a giant corporations, market themselves as a eco-friendly while relying on weak sustainability measures. This greenwashing erodes the public trust and destroys the competition and confuses the consumer and investors alike. Fifth one is the true carbon credits go unrewarded. Organizations offering high integrity carbon credits receive minimal financial recognitions. Without proper incentivizing system, authentic sustainability efforts struggle to compete with the cheaper, less effective alternatives. Sixth one is the ethical businesses face a systemic penalties. In today's market, companies that operate transparently and ethically often find themselves at a disadvantage. The current system rewards the shortcuts and greenwashing, leaving responsible players underpaid and overlooked. So to address these ethical and sustainability gaps, whatever the solution that Shruti has suggested, I think the shell company should adopt that solution. Thank you, sir. That's it from our side.
Final team, thank you. DJP Consulting, if you guys could come on, if everybody else could turn off your cameras.
Okay, hello everyone. I am the Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer, Daphne Lavasas, and I'm joined by my colleague Parth Chaturvedi, who is the Chief of Ethics and Compliance Officer as well. So I will hand it over to him to explain why our new NIL blueprint for the NCAA is very ethically sustainable.
Thank you so much, Daphne. Hello. So I'm going to start off by talking about the ethical implications of NCAA and NIL policy and explain why our solution is actually ethical and what are some of the implications of it. I want to start off by saying why we choose amateurism and why it must be maintained. So let's start. The NCAA is built around the idea of amateurism. That means student athletes are students first. But for years, the line of amateurism and professionalism has been blurred. As the NCAA made billions of dollars, athletes couldn't even monetize their social medias. So our solution doesn't actually abandon amateurism, it modernizes it. It allows athletes to earn income from their own name and brand without turning college sports into a pay-to-play system, which we have seen in recent years. It prevents the education and development missions of NCAA. Moving on to the stakeholders or the shareholders. Student athletes, they gain control, freedom, earn while receiving financial literacy training and legal contract reviews. NCAA avoids further antitrust laws, implementing a uniform legal and ethical policy. The universities benefit from a reduced liable and fewer recruiting violations, which has happened during the past few years, especially in D1 schools. This is due to transparency system. Fans from smaller sports, they see a more equitable representation. Not just deals for football or basketball, but we see deals from other smaller sports as well. Why and how a solution is actually ethical? Firstly, we respect for autonomy. Athletes have the right to control their own image and brand. Our system just empowers them to do that more responsibly. It prevents exploitation. By creating a national NIL review board and educational program, we protect the athletes from unfair and deceptive controls. We have perseverance academic policies. So this means instead of encouraging athletes to focus just on money, our plan includes academic incentives and guidelines that prevent NIL from interfering with education system. As I said, student athletes are student first. Prevents transparency from governor. Public NIL deals, disclosure, and centralized oversight ensures everyone to pay fair to play and has the same level of playing ground. Moving on, how this is going to actually benefit the NCAA. Firstly, it's going to be providing legal protection. Our plan aligns with antitrust laws, reducing the risk of future lawsuits like House versus NCAA, which is currently going on. Sustainability. A consistent nationwide NIL framework prevents conflicts between state laws and ensures a level playing field, as I mentioned earlier. Brand reputation. The NCAA gets to lead the ethical revolution of college athletes rather than reacting to public backlash, which is really important. Financial benefits. Centralized NIL platforms can also be monetized ethically. NCAA still can earn, but so do the athletes, which is the main point. Control and credibility. Instead of collective and boosting runners, the NCAA regains regulatory control over the NIL practices, which is what the NCAA wants. So why this is a win-win for everyone? Student athletes win money, education, and security. The NCAA wins compliance, credibility, and continued relevance. The universities win consistency and fewer legal risk, especially with recruiting. And the fans for smaller sports, they win better transparency and fairness. NIL is not the end of amateurism. It is a chance to make it more fair, more ethical, and more modern. Our plan is to build a system where everyone wins and where college sports can thrive under good, regulatory, and fair platform. Now I would like Daphne to take over. Thank you.
So essentially, when we talk about ethics, we're not just talking about rules or regulations and compliance. We're talking about responsibility, people's lives. The responsibility we all share as educators, leaders, and stewards of college athletics to protect and uplift the very people who give the NCAA its purpose, the student athletes. NIL has changed the game, undoubtedly. It's opened doors, and for some, it's created life-changing opportunities. NIL can bridge financial gaps, offer dignity, open career pathways, and level the playing field. But for the majority of athletes, those doors swing open into a system they're completely unprepared for to navigate. They are left alone to interpret contracts, track taxes, manage public image, and negotiate deals, often as teenagers, often with little to no guidance. That is not equity. That is imbalance. And we believe this: opportunity without protection is not progress, it's exploitation. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture a young athlete. She's a Division III track star, first in her family to go to college. She just got a local NIL deal. Maybe it's $500 a month, maybe it's free shoes and a social media shout out. She's thrilled in any case. But she has no idea how taxes work, what she just signed, or what rights she may have just given away. There's no lawyer, no advisor, just an institution that for liability issues cannot tell her if this is good for her or not. It's just her, a contract, and a dream. Now imagine there's a system in place where she can walk into her campus NIL office and say, can someone help me with this? Can someone help me understand this? And the answer is yes, because we built that system for her. That's the future we're proposing. We're not asking to pay athletes. We're not asking to redefine amateurism. We're asking to give athletes what they need to survive and succeed in this new creator era: clarity, safety, and empowerment through guidance. We propose the NCAA allocate just 30% of its television and marketing rights revenue, the largest and most sustainable stream, which will increase its value with NIL as well, to fund a 3-person advisory team at every NCAA institution. That's 1 lawyer, 1 financial advisor, 1 accountant per school. That's it. Legal advice, financial literacy, brand protection. These aren't luxuries anymore. In this creator era, these are essentials. What's in it for the NCAA? You reduce risk. Protecting athletes means fewer lawsuits, scandals, and compliance issues. You increase trust with athletes, families, and the public. And most importantly, you lead the nation in what ethical leadership in sports really looks like. Because this is not just about what's legal, it's about what's right. This is our ethical case. We do not ask the NCAA to change its mission. We do not ask it to do anything out of the ordinary. We ask it to live up to it. We honor the promise of student-athlete well-being, to turn NIL from a source of confusion and inequality into a beacon of empowerment and fairness, and it has the potential to do. Because when we protect student-athletes, all student-athletes, we don't just fix a system, we fulfill a duty. We build trust. We do the right thing, not because we have to, but because we should. This is a chance to show the world that the NCAA's greatest legacy won't just be championships. It will be the way it stood up in a moment of great change and shows integrity over inertia. Let that be the story we tell. Let that be the legacy we leave. Thank you.
You guys didn't pick any easy topics. All really difficult topics. Nothing simple. But nothing simple today. So let me go through some notes that I've taken. I want all great presentations. So I'll go through Majik Solutions. Really complicated topic. I appreciated the fact that you laid out, outdated systems, some areas not available to take advantage. You outline the geography, the differences in geography, the difficulties in geography, cultural problems. I appreciate the fact that you called out the communities, specific communities that they impacted, and kind of gave those communities faces. I appreciated that. You talk about the transit app and the one platform, and then how are you going to get there? Really, you went through a really detailed way of displaying all the different ethical lenses. I won't. You touched 6 ethical lenses, and then you went down to 4 guiding principles. I won't belabor all of them, but all of them really resonated with me, and it taught to the level of depth and breadth of the problem and how you guys are going to tackle it. I think the one of the biggest things that kind of rang out to me though was the community engagement, the employer incentives to collaborate with the communities and the really focus on relationships to help people. That was something that really stuck with me. Overall, good presentation. Very knowledgeable about the topic, and I appreciate the education. Kombu Consulting. Sorry if you couldn't hear me, I had the microphone covered. Kombu Consulting. An issue I didn't know was an issue. Running shoes. And I appreciate the 3 points and the challenges in the systems and the ethics involved. Greenwashing seems to be a theme. particularly on a couple of these teams that I've sat in through yesterday and today. I appreciated the fact that you guys called out the false data, the false information, the greenwashing going on, and the risk of lawsuits that this creates, and making it personal to me in terms of a corporate leader, why this, I need to take notice of it. Then you drove through, the climate action, and that we all need to participate, and you ran through the values, transparency, integrity, stewardship, and you kind of brought it home with a visual, at the end, kind of putting me kind of at the scene of the crime, so to speak. Imagine my kid, one of my kids, and the fact that shoe would be in a landfill, and by the time, I guess, it goes through the decomposing process, that child that I love will be a grandparent. So that puts it into 50 plus years of going through that process, right? So that kind of made it brought it home. It made it tangible, so to speak, and I appreciated that visual on making it kind of bringing it home. Trying to look at any other things that kind of jumped out at me, but from an ethical perspective, I understood why it made sense, and why, as a company, we had to act. More Mavericks, another really complicated topic, man. Carbon credits, lot of data. One of the top ones that, I guess, from a data point, so we've got a broken market, and 60% of the credits don't reduce carbon pollution. I appreciated how using AI to a new system to help kind of help resolve this issue and to hold people accountable. You went through all the ethical gaps, and the 6 ethical gaps, and I appreciate that. And again, talking to greenwashing and bad actors, and how they manipulate data information, similar to the shoe industry, and need the real need for ethical leadership and a change in culture. And again, bringing it home to not only a community, but you were able to talk about populations around the world that were being impacted by this in a real way, and that again helps bring it home, and the need to adopt a new framework. So again, really good presentation with a lot of facts, a lot of information, a lot of data. DJP Consulting. Now this one was new. NIL Blueprint for NCAA. Being a sports fan, I always thought about, NIL and the transfer portal and all these other things, and my team being, taken care of. And I'm thinking about all the money now that the student athletes make. And I'm thinking, okay, what's the ethical point here? And then you guys brought it down to a personal level, made me think about me being a 19-year-old, long time ago, and how in the heck would I even navigate complicated things like contract negotiation, not to even mention, the risk and the liability that I may sign up to, not knowing what I'm signing up to. tax implications, things like that, making it fair for everyone, not just the universities, but and not just some particular set of athletes, like the big sports, but making this framework accessible to everyone, so that in educating everyone, pro teams, the NFL, NBA, they have educational programs for their rookies when they come in, where they give them financial literacy and teach them a lot about the things that they're going to get into. Setting up something like that at a university level is really what you're talking about. Would be really good for all the athletes. Kind of, an intro to financial literacy. This is what you're getting into. And these are the folks you can call for help. I think across the board, I think it would have been better. Just some things just to think about across the board. There was one team that talked about lawsuits, and but I think it would have made it hit home even more, because I know businesses are risk averse. And so when you talk about the risk, not only the ethical implications, but the risk that they take on because of not being held accountable to resolve this issue, it would have made it pop even more. Meaning, NCAA, if you would have talked about the risks that the NCAA had, you talked a little about lawsuits and fairness and everything, but if there were some more tangible, like, here's a lawsuit that's really happening, that's on the verge, antitrust issues that are happening, and this is how it resolves it. I mean, that makes an executive kind of stand at attention to understand where it was coming. Majik Solutions, if there was I get the ethical part, but the liability, what's in it for them from a risk perspective for not doing it, kind of pulling it home. There were a couple of groups that kind of talked about it, but if I heard that throughout in a presentation, not only the ethical part of me wanting to, why I need to do it, but here's the financial risk of not doing it, would have made it pop even more, in my opinion. But overall, really, really great presentations, really 4 tough topics, all really with a lot of depth and critical. Really have to bring a critical thinking lens to all of these issues. But well done. Thanks for tackling these issues. That's really all the feedback that I have. Great job by the teams. All right. So good luck going forward. And that's all my feedback. Have a great day.